50 years of Chinese communist rule is celebrated on October the 1st, 1999. But the system of rule extends back another 2,000 years, making China the heir to the longest unbroken tradition of government in the world. But China is changing fast and opening up to the West. All this is posing fresh challenges to the system. Massive economic development is found alongside failing state corporations, and unemployment is rising fast. The Chinese say, use history as a mirror. Can history help China's leaders meet the demands of a huge society, changing faster than ever before? Governing China has always been difficult. More so today, with over 1.3 billion people, a fifth of the Earth's population. This figure has doubled in the past 50 years since Chairman Mao took power. This is Chengdu, capital of Sichuan province in southwestern China. This is a province larger than France, with a population bigger than United Germany. In Chinese tradition, it has been known as heaven on earth, the land of plenty. It has a vast fertile valley at its center, aptly called the Rice Bowl of China, ringed by mountains that kept it separate for years. Sichuan is one of more than 30 provinces and regions, all geographically diverse, but identical in their style of government. Each province is a miniature replica of the central state. The Provincial People's Congress, Sichuan's biggest political meeting of the year, attended by over 1,000 officials. In theory, this meeting runs the province. In practice, the real power is in the hands of senior officials, like the governor, Song Bao-rui. He is here to report on what the provincial government has done over the past year. He is the administrator for the province's ultimate boss, Party Secretary Xie Shijie. To be an official is to have power and prestige. This is as true today as it's always been throughout Chinese history.
China is a people's democratic dictatorship under the leadership of the Communist Party. The party leads the country. It doesn't replace the government. The government looks after production. The party sets the policies and direction.
The government is still using a command and control system first established some 2,000 years ago.
I manage a population of 84 million. The issues that worry me each day are all about my people's jobs and lives. The masses regard food as paramount, so I have to ensure people have enough to eat. I have to take care of literally everything: eating, drinking, shitting, pissing. In other words, food, clothing, shelter and transport.
Central government keeps a close watch on how officials perform.
The pressure is enormous. I have to look after everything. I'm the one who has to make the final decision. So if my decisions are correct, people will do well. And if I make the wrong decision, everyone will suffer with me. I'm responsible for everything in Sichuan. I also control everything.
This is a story of officials serving the people, as Mao's slogan proclaims. The story of Sichuan and the running of China. But Sichuan hasn't always been a part of China. At Sanqindui, a find made in 1986 proved that 3,500 years ago, Sichuan had a culture that was quite individual and independent from the rest of China. The ritual objects come from a sacrificial pit that adjoined an as yet undiscovered palace. The significance of the human-like masks is not yet fully understood. It was not until 316 BC that Sichuan was brought into China when it was conquered by the state of Qin. It was the Qin warriors like these immortalized in terracotta near Xi'an in western China that finally unified the entire country in 221 BC after centuries of increasingly brutal warfare. They were led by Emperor Qin Shi Huang, who immediately imposed his own standards on the whole of China. Before, there had been differing styles of scripts, weights and measures in the various states. Qin Shi Huang imposed only one. The script he imposed with minor changes is still used today and still helps tie this vast country together. Qin Shi Huang imposed an immensely powerful state that regulated everything. Run by officials, not by aristocrats, no disobedience, no criticism was allowed. For the next 2,000 years, China was to be governed by the world's most elaborate bureaucracy. Huge numbers of conscripts were compelled to dig canals and build roads to link the empire together. Existing defenses were welded into what we now know as the Great Wall to keep the barbarian nomads to the north at bay. Qin Shi Huang's rule was underpinned by a philosophy known as legalism. Legalism kept order and removed chaos by imposing harsh laws, burning books, and killing intellectuals belonging to other schools of thought. The Qin system ruled by fear. Officials themselves were as terrified of the laws they imposed as were the common people. The rigid severity of Qin Shi Huang's rule meant that his subjects had nothing to lose. Rebellions broke out across the empire, and by 206 BC, the Qin were history. The first emperor and his legalist philosophy had lasted for only 12 years. The search for a more acceptable political philosophy began. The answer lay with Confucius. Born some 300 years earlier, he had been a minor official whose disciples led a movement that grew in significance as the centuries passed. His primary aim was the ethical behavior of men. He taught a morality in which every individual had their place in a web of obligations beginning in the family and extending out to the whole of humanity. The dynasty that followed Qin Shi Huang adopted Confucian thought, making it China's governing morality. Confucian scriptures are immortalized in stone all across the country. Of course, the centralized state machine of Qin was just too efficient to be abandoned, but its harshness needed to be toned down. Thus, the respectability of Confucian moral values was engaged to counterbalance the toughness of legalism, producing a value system for China's bureaucracy that was stable enough to last for the next 2,000 years. The empire, conquered by the Qin and ruled by many emperors after them, was overwhelmingly a world of peasant farmers. Agriculture is still how 80% of Sichuan people make a living. On most farms, harvesting is still done by hand, with the whole family helping out. The name Sichuan means 4 rivers, one of which has the small town of Yellow Dragon alongside it. Yellow Dragon, built some 350 years ago at the beginning of the last dynasty, the Qing, has 4,000 inhabitants. It's a market town for local farm produce, but big changes are on the way. Provincial government has recently upgraded and reclassified the town. This means that a number of new controls are being added. The first is a group of new police. The local residents committee, made up of shopkeepers, traders and householders, meet to be told about the new urban police. The committee is the channel through which government decisions are passed down to each household. Chow Yonggu, a restaurateur, is its chairman.
Let me introduce you to Mr. Pan, the leader of the urban police.
This document is issued in the government's name in order to keep social order. Those who break the law will be asked to correct their actions. In serious cases, people will be fined and their goods removed and licenses cancelled.
Mr. Chow's restaurant is a cooperative where all staff share in the profits. At the street level, Mr. Chow understands China's chain of command.
Central government policy is passed on to every province, then to each city, then to the counties, finally to every town. Town leaders will then gather officials at the grassroots level for meetings. Then we pass the policy on to all citizens. You can complain, but you still have to obey the party. This is China. You can have your own opinions, but you still have to do what the party tells you.
At party headquarters, the town's officials receive their weekly instructions from the county. The meeting is chaired by Yellow Dragon's mayor and party secretary. They announce that a new road is to be built to connect the growing town to the capital.
This year's most important job is the road. It's fundraising, measurement and its construction, and we have to finish it. Comrade Gao De Wen will lead the construction group that lays out the road.
The road will be 30 kilometers long, partly funded by the villagers themselves, paying 100 RMB or $12 US per head. A large amount of money for the farmers.
Each village should find ways of raising money. With people who have no grain, ensure you collect cash. Be tough about it. Use any means. After I've got all the information together, I will know how much compensation we have to pay out and how many families will need to be moved.
Mr. Gao has the difficult job of explaining to many of the local residents whose homes fall in the path of the new road the unpalatable facts.
This mark shows where the middle of the road will be.
With the road 20 meters wide, those in its path will lose their homes and farmland. Although they will have other land allocated, they have no choice in the matter.
The road will benefit all our children and grandchildren. Remember the saying, if you want to get rich, you have to build roads first. Don't worry, we won't demolish your home before your temporary accommodation is settled.
It's really difficult for us, very difficult indeed. I built this house when my son was still young. We had to borrow money and food from others. I'm heartbroken, I'm really upset. I'm 40 now, and once again I'm going to have to build another home.
Families who have difficulties will be able to get loans. You should get ready. Perhaps ask someone to take care of your pigs and chickens.
The Chens are one of over 100 families that will need to find new homes. Mr. Gao is often the bearer of bad news. There's a Chinese saying that's apt in these circumstances. One has to sacrifice individual need for the greater good. In Chengdu, senior officials are also finding they have a difficult decision to take. China's Premier, Zhu Rongji, has blamed overlogging in the Sichuan highlands for horrendous flooding on the Yangtze River. Today's meeting has been called to announce Sichuan's decision to cease all logging. 500,000 jobs could be lost.
Sichuan has always been a province that suffers from disasters, constantly under threat from droughts and floods.
China is virtually unique in being able to change direction swiftly on major issues. Central control of government decision-making has always given China a huge advantage, but only so long as the government can make sure people really do what it says. This puts officials who implement policy under great pressure, especially when the state-directed economy is being opened to the market.
Overall, China is fine. It's stable, but it's in a period of transition at present. So there are bound to be conflicts across the country. Everything is developing, so we're under pressure. There are lots of difficulties and conflicts.
The meeting is a high-tech solution to an old problem: how to get the message down through all the layers of bureaucracy to the local level. Here they use modern technology to allow people across the province to participate in sound and vision with the capital, Chengdu.
We must motivate the whole province to strengthen flood control.
It's one straight line from the top right down to the bottom. One order from the top of the party is passed down through every level right to the bottom. This is our country's major advantage. In the party system, all commands and orders are absolute. People below obey their superiors. When the British government makes policy, the Mayor of London doesn't necessarily follow their orders. In China, this would be absolutely impossible. In Western countries, when governments issue instructions people don't always obey, this wouldn't be allowed here at all. Without leadership and without the rule of law, we'd be in a state of chaos. In China, we can't have a situation in which people do or say what they like.
Farmers and peasants have historically been supposed to do what they were told. To ensure that this really happened, manuals of instruction were regularly issued by Chinese rulers such as the Qin Emperor Kangxi to guide their subjects. They also told their officials that good government depended on letting people live at ease, and the way of good government is in not hurting them. Having a whole lot of trouble is not as good as stopping trouble from occurring in the first place. Sensible emperors realized that their power to control people was limited, did not try to push them too far. Peasants all know the saying, heaven is high and the emperor is far away. The Sichuan leadership are holding their annual review of agriculture. Recent years have seen a growing problem of flagrant extortion by petty officials levying unreasonable charges on the peasants.
There's a great danger of instability in the countryside, largely as a result of problems arising from the peasant savings funds. We need to do a great deal of work to ensure stability in these rural areas.
If our villages become unstable, and even the peasants aren't happy with the party, what then will become of China? Peasants and workers are still the country's foundations.
We must use tough measures to reduce the unreasonable burdens levied on farmers. Some of them have brought complaints to the government, others have even beaten up officials. This shows that many officials haven't been doing their job or carrying out policy to lighten farmers' burdens.
We've got to work hard and keep our promises. We can't underestimate peasants' issues. We should prevent sudden changes. This is the lesson of China. In the past, our life was really miserable. Masses of peasants were starving. There were no clothes, no shoes. People were barefoot, bare-backed, and bare-chested. As the son of peasants, I wanted to do a good job in farming and help people get enough to eat. So I studied agriculture at university. This was always my aim. I felt deeply about those peasants who starved. I cried many times when I was starving. At the time of the Great Leap Forward and the height of the People's Commune, I was in secondary school. We had 3 miserable years. Malnutrition was very common. Many people died. This left a deep impression on me.
The Great Leap Forward, launched in 1958, was a vast experiment in collectivization, a dash for growth, powered by socialist ideology alone. In Sichuan, the chaos resulting from its failure caused a famine that killed 8 million people, every 8th person. The ancient Chinese Empire was created after a period of terrible instability. From 700 to 220 BC, rivalry between states meant endemic wars. Battles could kill tens, even hundreds of thousands, when whole armies or cities were butchered. Throughout the past 2,000 years, as dynasties rose and fell, there were extended periods of stability followed by moments of violent uprising and chaos. These pictures illustrate scenes from the Taiping Rebellion in the mid-19th century, which was the largest war on Earth until the Second World War. Tens of millions were killed, devastating the heartland of China. Chaotic times continued through into the middle of this century, when the great master of chaos, Mao Zedong, won power in 1949. Here in Sichuan, they know chaos well. Over 80% of the population were massacred in the 17th century by the rebel Zhang Xianzhong. He had a simple slogan: kill, 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 kill. To repopulate Sichuan, millions were moved from neighboring provinces, including the ancestors of today's inhabitants of Yellow Dragon.
My ancestors came here as a result of the millions slaughtered in the uprisings by the rebel Zhang Xianzhang. They were moved here from Hunan to repopulate and redevelop this area.
For them, the chaos of 350 years ago is a recent and terrifying memory that the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution only reinforced.
People all want a peaceful life, to live and work with stability and content. They know that uprisings or chaos won't do them any good. During the Cultural Revolution, the Red Guards were travelling all across China. When shopkeepers saw them, they barred their doors. There were street fights between rival factions. People were worried that their property could be destroyed. Living and working in a stable and happy environment is most important. Nobody wants chaos.
The people of China and their rulers share a fear that chaos could once again devastate their fertile land. Stability is all. Over the centuries, China's armies have conquered and defended a vast land empire. Throughout that history, the army has mostly been kept in its place by emperors and governments as the final sanction over a rebellious populace. As Chairman Mao pointed out so forcibly, political power grows out of the barrel of a gun, but the party must control the gun, not the gun the party. The army has been used sparingly in recent history, and then only when the government in power has dictated.
Is the Fire Dragon very busy this year during Spring Festival?
Yes, it's very busy.
One of Mr. Chow's jobs is to help the police check people's residence permits, called the hukou. It's a registration system that has been in effect for over 2,000 years and has allowed successive dynasties to control people's whereabouts. It's still very much in use. Anyone wanting to spend more than a few days in another town for any reason is supposed to report in and out at the nearest police station.
Our hukou system works like this. Each person has an ID, each household has a hukou booklet, and each village has an overall list as well. Comings and goings, births and deaths, everything has to be reported to the police station so they can keep a record. Then the information will be passed on to us.
Did you leave town?
No. I was quite busy during Spring Festival. My little rickshaw got lots of work.
So your hukou is still in Huaiyang?
Yes, it's still in Huaiyang. I came home because I lost my job there.
The hukou is very tightly controlled. If a peasant wants to become registered in a town, it's impossible unless you meet certain special requirements. It's very important for the social security and stability of our country.
Nowadays, recording people's comings and goings keeps Yellow Dragon's police station busy, especially the hukou office.
Since 1949, the Chinese government has been very strict with the hukou. Everyone has to have a hukou, whether they work or not, whether they live in towns or countryside. In the past, some rulers were very strict with residence registration. If officials failed to do their job, they would be beheaded. The system was very strictly carried out.
Records are entirely computerized today, and can be accessed across the country. It records all personal details: age, height, weight, sex, blood type.
The Communist Party's control is more efficient than in the past, with strong management ability and perfect organizational systems. Compared to any other period of Chinese history, the control of the hukou system during the last 50 years has been the strictest.
Keeping control of China has always involved persuasion as well as coercion. A network of public address loudspeakers broadcasts a daily diet of news and propaganda everywhere, in towns, villages and countryside. The agenda in Yellow Dragon today is the building of the new road. Four months ago, we saw the Chen family being told that their home was doomed and that they would need to move. The bulldozers have been, and they're now squatting in a makeshift shed alongside the new road. Compensation has not been forthcoming, as they'd hoped. They've been offered far less than it'll cost to rebuild.
I think the government deceived us. They cheated us right from the start. After they'd torn our house down, they abandoned us. If I'd known earlier they were going to cheat us, I wouldn't have agreed to let them pull my house down. I deeply regret it. But they threatened that if we refused to move, they'd destroy our house anyway. In demolishing the house, they also destroyed our doors. And the bed we slept on, that can't be used anymore. We lost so many things. They even told us that we would be given compensation. But what compensation have we got? Nothing. Nothing at all. If I'd known that it was so difficult, I'd rather have died than let them demolish my house. I really have no way out. I really hope that someone can help me.
Not all visits from officials mean trouble. Wen Zhongjing, the head of agriculture in Sichuan, spends more than half his time visiting the countryside he loves so much. He tries to embody the Confucian ideal of an upright official who leads by example.
To make the peasant's life better and better. To be an uncorrupted, upright official. This is what the Communist Party teaches. To serve the people wholeheartedly. This has always been my wish and my goal.
At the town offices, Mr. Wen continues his inspection.
Most grassroots officials in the villages are good people. Only a minority are bad. Some officials are selfish and don't give a damn about the law. They are corrupt, taking bribes, extorting money, even blackmailing peasants, totally abusing their power.
Mr. Wen is taken to see the Yamen, the local seat of power for over 1,000 years. All local rules and regulations were enacted from here by appointed officials with the power of life and death over the residents.
This was built during the Qing dynasty, and was used until just before liberation.
Look at what's written there. Be responsible for the people. This is what the Communist Party should do as well. On the left it reads, be upright and uncorrupted. On the right, carry out justice. Chairman Mao told us to serve the people. Party officials should be responsible, upright and uncorrupted. All these are good things, and we should keep them.
Successive emperors evolved the complex system of appointing officials to run the government machine. Since there were few imperial officials, they had to be multi-talented as well as ideologically sound. Here in Nanjing, the remains of 5,000 examination cubicles give a glimpse of the arduous and exacting series of examinations they had to pass. The system selected and trained officials based on personal ability, not inheritance, that was the envy of the world for centuries. The British still called their senior officials mandarins. The examination syllabus was mainly based on texts by Confucius and his followers. Many nowadays feel that the system wasted the energies of China's best minds for centuries. Confucius taught his students, officials in the making, a morality in which every individual has his or her place in an ordered net of obligations. Children were required to obey parents, wives to obey husbands, subjects to obey rulers. Rulers were expected to set a good example to make their subjects behave well and not need harsh laws to govern with. All human relationships were supposed to be governed not by criminal law, but by a code of correct behavior. Marx oversees morning exercise for senior officials at Sichuan's top party school. Officially, Confucius is no longer the chief guide for government officials in China.
Now to begin the lecture. Today's topic is a few questions on strengthening party discipline and establishing clean government.
Today's party cadres, like emperor's officials for the past 2,000 years, have been trained to lead by example. They are still called mother-father officials, and their moral stance should be beyond reproach. Party schools exist at every level in society. They act as further education courses, especially in current political thinking. Senior officials are given regular refresher courses. They start by perfecting their balance.
Comrade Deng Xiaoping and Chen Yuan instructed us many times, explaining that party discipline was vital to the survival of the party. At the 15th National People's Congress, it was pointed out that the fight against corruption was a life and death issue for the party and the nation.
Throughout China, the leaders have told the party to clean up its act. Corruption is on the increase.
Corruption hasn't been cut back to its roots. The number of major serious corruption cases in government organizations is still rising.
Our party has been seriously eroded. Fighting corruption is vital for the party's well-being. You can't expect the party to be whiter than white after 77 years. If we can't cope with the challenge, we'll be in big trouble.
There
is a Chinese saying, it is not polite to receive favors and not return them. If someone offers you a drop of water, you should return the favor with a stream. Nowadays, some people have used this tradition improperly in their political and social life to build up contacts and connections. This has produced corruption.
If we don't come down very hard and stop corruption, we could end up with a government in ruins and party dead.
Faced with official decisions they don't like, most Chinese people have had no choice but to play the system, with all the consequent risks of corruption and trading favors. But nowadays, a new way of handling things is starting right at the grassroots. The practice of law and the local law courts are new and still objects of fascination. Two farmers argue a land dispute with the state-appointed legal teams before a judge. They're being observed by the county legal head, Judge Jiang.
Before the Cultural Revolution, one can say China was ruled by people. We didn't have that many laws. China was not a country ruled by law. Since the open door policy, we have experienced a fundamental change. Before 1978, I never thought I'd see peasants protecting their rights in court. I now have great confidence that China is moving towards a system of rule by law. If a country isn't ruled by law, it'll become a sheet of loose sand. In other words, a chaotic country. There'll be unimaginable chaos.
Peasants now bring their problems to court in droves to see justice done at a grassroots level. These local courts handle over 5,000 cases a year. But judicial independence is still a concern, with local government funding the costs of court cases.
I hope that our entire legal system becomes centrally managed, from the highest to the lowest court. In that way, we can ensure the independence of the judicial system and eradicate what we call local protectionism. People certainly have worries. They feel that local courts and local government are one and the same. And if they go to court to sue local officials, it will only harm them. They feel the local courts cannot bring justice when dealing with local governments. When a country realizes rule by law and has a complete legal system, democracy will also be realized. They are hand in hand. Without a legal system, there will be no democracy.
One of China's latest legal innovations is a law that allows failing firms to go bankrupt. But the government are on the horns of a dilemma. On the one hand, they have many state-owned corporations hemorrhaging money through out-of-date work practices. On the other hand, the authorities are terrified of the consequences of firing large numbers of people who may not find jobs anywhere else and will lose their social security protection with their jobs. The party leaders tell senior officials that here in Sichuan, they will need to lay off over 1 million workers over the next couple of years.
Two things suffocate state enterprises. The first and the biggest enemy of the enterprises is too many people. If you have 30% more people than you need, all those promises about improving efficiency are just empty. The second problem is having fools, idiots and crooks working as managers. This definitely won't do. Comrades, a social security system is vitally important. It's an instrument to keep good balance and social stability. But we don't have it. Why has there been unrest recently? Because workers have to live. We have to solve their problems. Unrest has its reasons.
The governor has placed his job on the line. Today, he travels to a large state organization that produces medical instruments. It is in real trouble. Workers are owed 4 months' salary, and pensioners 3.
Are you still losing money?
Yes, we are. Our main problem is cash flow. We have been losing money each year, so our bank credit is bad. Even though the market is there, we don't have the cash to produce our orders worth 12 million.
You have huge numbers of workers here, but you only produce a small number of products. In other places, one worker produces 10 machines a year. Here you have 100 workers producing just one machine a year. Of course, sooner or later your business will collapse. State enterprises collapse because they're hugely wasteful. An enterprise run like this is totally out of touch with reality.
Governor Song alone will make the decision as to whether the factory will survive. The future of its 2,000 workers, their livelihoods, homes, and way of life depends on him. But then it's always been like this in China throughout history. It is left to the senior official to make the hard decisions.
You have to reduce your staff and increase efficiency, that's it. If you can't do this and produce the best quality, you'll be out of business in no time. Do you hear me? Loud and clear?
Yes, I hear you loud and clear.
Now, I'm giving you an order. You must turn losses into profits this year. You can't go on losing money. Can you do this? If you can't achieve it, then it's bye-bye.
In Yellow Dragon, it's a new season, and it's now 9 months since the Chen's home was destroyed.
The burden is very heavy. Everyone thinks the peasants' burden is heavy. Families like us who work the land don't have regular income. We can't afford the children's school fees. We can't even afford meat or cooking oil.
The Chens have almost finished building their new home, but government compensation hasn't been enough to complete it. The windows are about to be repossessed, and they haven't enough to pay their builder. To make ends meet, Mrs. Chen has started a tea house to supplement the farm income. Like many others, Mrs. Chen feels that times are hard, despite all the progress of the last 20 years.
Of course peasants are worse off. We have to pay local taxes and road building fees. We can't afford it. Grain prices are low. Of course peasants are badly off.
The Chens have been to the town offices on countless occasions to try and get a resolution to their situation. They're short of 4,000 RMB, $500. Mrs. Chen has now decided to wage war on officialdom.
Chief Gao, we've come about our house.
Has it been demolished?
Yes, it's gone.
Local officials regularly deal with grassroots discontent. Mr. Gao is mindful of his title as a mother-father official, and Mrs. Chen is not reluctant to make it plain just how discontented she is.
Well, I'm still very unhappy. At our last meeting, you promised, saying that we could choose our own site, but we've had no choice.
Yellow Dragon has 110 homes to move. We've guaranteed that each family will move into their new homes this year.
If you'd built the road without destroying my home, I wouldn't have needed to build again.
Whatever difficulties you have, we'll try and help. All your problems. The bank loan, your son's schooling, the government will solve it.
Mrs. Chen is not about to take this lying down. She counters Mr. Gao's words with her own media offensive.
Well, I told them, if they don't solve my problem, I'll go to the television station and expose them all. I don't care if they lose face or not.
Mrs. Chen's blackmail worked. Soon afterwards, Mr. Gao told them he would help them by funding their child's education and by getting them a bank loan.
Village officials don't care about anything. As long as you've paid your local taxes and the grain tax, they won't bother you. But if you don't pay enough, they'll knock on your door demanding money every day. Nobody dares question authority. We don't know enough to challenge them. When the government issues an order, it's an order. Who dares oppose it? If we're not careful, we could all end up in jail. Not very nice, is it?
The payment of the annual grain tax is always a difficult time for farmers like the Chens. Still referred to as the imperial grain, its payment in hard times has resulted in many uprisings throughout China's history. This year, here in Yellow Dragon, there's also the added road tax to pay. This is the moment where so often resentments are felt. No one likes paying tax, but it's also the point where successive wise emperors and rulers have advised caution and good leadership. Emperor Han Huandi knew this well when, almost 2,000 years ago, he said, "An enlightened ruler will encourage his people in agriculture, lighten taxes and other levies, increase his store of supplies and fill his granaries in preparation for flood and drought. Through this, he can keep and care for his people, and the people may then be led by the ruler." China hopes that today's officials have learnt this message. With Chinese New Year approaching, the governor travels across the province to inspect new works and ensure the well-being of his subjects, as officials have done throughout history.
Chairman Mao gave the party 3 rules to deal with peasants. Of course, he didn't stick to them himself. First of all, peasants must be given what they're owed. We can't deprive them of their benefits. Second, we must fully respect their will. This means that the party has to help the peasants fulfill their aims. The party can't force them to do what they don't want. Thirdly, the peasants need to be educated. In the past, peasants didn't have enough to eat, but now there's enough food to go round. I think that Chairman Mao's theory is absolutely correct. Emperors in the past also knew this as well. If officials were too forceful, people would revolt.
China's a country with an ancient civilization, with thousands of years of history. Each dynasty experienced prosperity and collapse, success and failure. When a government loved its people and helped its people get rich, it was prosperous. On the other hand, if a government harmed and ruined its people, it wouldn't last.
Chinese history is often said to go in cycles. But where in the cycle are they now? China today is very different from the chaotic and impoverished country of 50 years ago. After 20 years of rapid growth, people's expectations are rising fast. They would like more, and they'd like it now. The great sage Mencius, one of Confucius' followers, wisely commented, "Win the people, and you win the empire. Win their hearts, and you win the people. Give them and share with them what they like, and do not do to them what they do not like." The people turn to a humane ruler as water flows downward. But rapid economic change is altering the very rules of the game. Can the structures that have governed China for so long stand the strain? Can they adapt quickly enough without slipping into chaos? At the beginning of the new millennium, will China use its history as a mirror towards a new future? Or will it be burdened by that history?